Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you may be tuning in to the Growing Our Future podcast. Number one, thank you. Thank you for stopping by. I meant when you're asking somebody to give up a little bit of their time, you're asking them to give something away that they're never going to get back. So the fact that you're joining us, we want you to know that we appreciate that and we value that. We also appreciate the fact that we've got this incredible platform, this technology that we have that allows us to bring subject matter experts on, to bring guests on that are willing to share their insights, their experiences, their expertise, to share seeds of greatness. You know, like we always say, if agriculture's taught us anything, it's taught us, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. Well, how do you grow it? You got to plant the right seeds. And today we've got a guy that's going to bring some seeds of greatness. It has been an honor to get to know him. It's been an honor to work with him. And I will tell you, it's even more of an honor that he's taking time out of his schedule to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Durman. Steve, thank you for joining us.
Aaron, thank you for having me. It's always an honor. Definitely a pleasure to be here.
You're going to learn more about Steve. He is the founder and creative director of Four Man Furnace. We're going to talk a little bit about Four Man Furnace, and you've probably seen their work, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Steve, every episode when we start, we like to ask guests the same question. So we start every episode with the same question, and you get that question today, and it is, Steve, what are you grateful for today?
Gosh, I'm feeling incredibly grateful today just for family. I've got my beautiful daughter, Tessa, here at the office with me today. She's helping me at work. She's incredibly talented and is able to actually legitimately be a help here at the office, even at 12 years old. But definitely just feeling incredibly grateful for family today in general. My son, Wesley, my wife, Leandra, across the board, just very blessed.
That's good. By the way, I agree with you. And the thing I appreciate, Steve, is how much you appreciate your family and you value your family, and it shows. And I showed the kids a picture of our family the other day, and I said, look at that. And they're like, what? I said, look at that. You know, look, I want you to look at it. And I kind of got a little sappy with them. And I said, you know, if you'd ever grew up with one, you don't understand why this is such a precious picture.
Yeah.
And so when you share a family, I just want you to know that that means something, because some people never grew up with that. And so when we get to see it, we appreciate it and we value it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the one thing that we get in life that we don't get to acquire or choose for ourselves. Either we're born into a family not of our choosing, or when we choose to have a family and create a family, we don't really have a whole terrible amount of control over how that turns out and the people that kind of become a part of that. So it's always a blessing. It's also a challenge, but through those challenges, we grow and become better people. So yeah, just I'm feeling it today for sure.
Awesome. Well, good luck to those kids. And I know they're going to do good work. They got a good boss, so that's a good thing.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
So anyway, hey, listen, so for people that aren't familiar with Steve Durman or Four Man Furnace, let me give y'all a little backstory. So several years ago, we wanted to do a project, a promotional project, to promote really what we see as the value of agricultural science education and the FFA program. And those of you familiar with our show and what we talk about, I always say, if you want to be the best, train with the best. So if you want to be the best at something, go find the best out there and train with them, hang out with them, watch them. And we had caught word of this company called Four Man Furnace. We got word of this gentleman named Steve Durman. And we reached out and we started a relationship, a business relationship. And I got to tell you, I would say this on the air and off the air. I appreciate this organization. I appreciate their employees, their leadership, their customer service. They are always on top of their game. I love it that they listen. And because they know this, they've got that skill of just listening with eyes and ears. It helps them create the products that they create. And it shows in what they put out there. But Steve, I don't suspect that you just fell into that seat that you're in. I don't believe that you just fell into being the creative director and founder of Four Man. Something tells me that there was a journey that led there. And so I was wondering if you might take a minute and tell us, how did you get on this path to this journey for this company for marketing and creative? And how did you end up in that chair?
Yeah, so I didn't fall into the chair. I think it was equal parts intention and equal parts, the other half of that coin is really just kind of going where I was led at any given moment in time. And so my background is as a graphic designer. That's what I went to school for. I have my BA in graphic design and graduated in the late 90s. Went to work at the time, I was living in New Jersey, went to work in Atlantic City, which was near where I lived at the time, at a casino in their marketing department, and really was able to cut my teeth on just this industry that we're in, creative services for marketing and branding and advertising. And so really learned a lot those first couple of years working in the casino. In early 2000, moved here to the DFW area and had aspirations of working at an advertising agency. Back then, to me, the advertising agency life was exciting and fast paced and creative, and the types of clients working at an agency gives you access to is really exciting. So I did that. Middle of 2000, I landed a job at an advertising agency. So I'm going to fast forward a bunch because there was a lot of steps along the way there, but ended up as a creative director, an advertising agency. And at the same time, on the side, I was working with my own clients, kind of consulting on the side. And it got to the point where both of those endeavors were incredibly intense and demanding a lot of my time. And so I'm leading a little bit into two things. One, the founding of Four Man Furnace, and at the same time, how I chose that name for the company. So at the time I was going to work as a creative director at a pretty intense working environment, and then coming home and working a full-time job on my consulting clients.
Mm-hmm.
Found out that my wife was pregnant with our firstborn. This was in late 2007, and decided to quit my job. Something had to give, and I said, I'm going to quit the day job and I'm going to make this consulting thing, this freelance thing, the main thing, which was really scary because there was no, working at the agency as a creative director, I knew I had a job next week, next month, whatever. Was working on some really good clients and working with some really smart, talented people. And going freelance, nothing was guaranteed. It was quite literally a leap of faith. It was what I believed to be the right decision, but definitely not the easy decision. So I knew, okay, I'm going to start creative business of my own. What am I going to call this thing? It needs to be memorable. It needs to attract some attention. People need to hear the name, and it needs to be somewhat kind of compelling and intriguing. But to me, it also needed to have meaning. And I really felt a story from the Old Testament of the Bible at the time. I felt like I was going through a similar experience. And it's the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they refused to worship the king of Babylon. And the punishment was he was going to throw them into a furnace of fire and burn them alive. That was their punishment. And so the story says that confronted with this, they said to the king, well, that's kind of scary, and do what you're going to do. We believe we're making the right choice, and we're leaving the results up to our God. And that's kind of what I was doing. It was scary, and I believed I was making the right choice, and I was kind of leaving the results up to God. And so, of course, the story has a happy ending. Hopefully, a lot of your listeners are familiar. When they were thrown into the furnace, the king looked in to ensure that they were dead. And what the Bible says is he didn't see 3 men in the furnace, he saw 4 men in the furnace. They were walking around unhurt, having a conversation, and that 4th man appeared to be an angel of God protecting them. And so I really clung to that story in the early years of Four Man Furnace because it was a scary ride, like I said, and nothing was certain, but I was every day going to work in faith, trusting that I was doing the right thing.
What a story. I love it, by the way. And I've expressed that to Steve even off of the air. I thought it was a very clever take. And when you know the background and you know why that leap of faith was so important, and like you said, it was more than just a leap of faith. you actually felt like I'm being thrown in the fire. It's something even more incredible.
Yeah.
And there's a comfort that comes with faith, by the way. And I think that that comfort is what's given you that foundation to take risk. And, all successful people that I'm aware of, Steve, they've all taken risk.
Yeah.
And they typically, if you really drill down, there's always a component of faith
Sure.
in taking risk. And so you've already kicked this off just perfectly because, what we really want folks to gather from this podcast is bring on successful people. And what are those elements of their journey that made them successful? Because somebody listening is going to find some seeds of greatness. Like we always say in agriculture, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. Got to plant the seeds. So we need guests like you to share those examples. So somebody that's listening right now says, I got to do a better job of that. And I can't be so afraid of the fire. And I can't be adverse to taking risk, that everything that we do is risky. I will tell you, in the nonprofit world, we don't live on production lines. We don't live on services that we get money for. We live on the generosity of others. And so when you get ready to saddle with a company and you say, we're going to go spend a lot of money on a marketing company, we were kind of in there with you because we were really relying on faith that we felt like we were making the right decision. We felt like there was this incredible story of the Texas FFA that needed to be told. And we needed to tell it in a way that we've never told it before.
Yeah.
And thus, that's how we came to know you and began working with your team and that relationship. Now, how long has that relationship been going on?
We launched that program in 2016. So I want to say we probably started conversations in 2015 around it. So
that's what I was
years.
thinking.
Yeah.
And it's been great. And again, I say this just because it's the kind of relationship that I like. They always answer the phone and they listen. We throw ideas. But I think, Steve, would you say it's fair that we listen to you too?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. You and your team are tremendous to work with. And, one of our core values here is we have two core values. One is do amazing work, and the other is be amazing to work with. And I firmly believe if we can do those two things, then, the work will come our way, because who doesn't want to work with amazing people who do great work? And so I think when I think about be amazing to work with, we can break that down into a few different areas. But one of the things that we try to focus on is know when to give direction and when to take it. And I feel like your team understands that as well. They give us great direction in terms of articulating to us what the goals are for an initiative that we're working on for y'all. But when we have ideas or a perspective that we want to share in response to that and collaborate on, hey, maybe there's a better way to do this, your team is all ears, and they're 100% willing to listen and to take that direction. So we've had nothing but joy in working with you guys for almost 10 years now.
It's crazy. Let me share this. One of the things that I like to talk about when we talk about agriculture is I remember this time where these two young ladies, this was really clever. Their school district, every February 2nd, every Groundhog Day, they would send their seniors out to job shadow companies, which I thought was pretty clever. So these young ladies come to my office, and they really shouldn't have been in my office. They should have been in the director of the Ag Teachers Association, because why they were there was they want to be ag teachers, agricultural science teachers. And so I let them kind of watch what we do during the day. And I finally said, do y'all have any questions? And they said, yes, sir. They said, we want to be great ag teachers one day. What does it take to be a great ag teacher? And I said, well, it takes three things to be a great ag teacher. I said, number one, do your job. And I said, you need to listen to what I'm telling you. Do your job. If your boss says, don't dot I's, don't cross T's, and staple in the top right-hand corner, you better not dot, cross, and you better staple in the top right-hand corner. You're going to be looking for another job. Said, number two, have your own personal board of directors. Get mentors. Get people around you that will make you better. And lastly, you got to think big. I said, because if you can't think big, you can't teach big. If you can't think big, you can't inspire big. And if you can't think big, the kids in your care will never be big. And they said, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, can I show you? And they said, sure. So I took them on a route through downtown Austin, and we walked several blocks. And I took them to eat lunch at a sushi restaurant. I love sushi. So take them to the sushi. They'd never had sushi before. So I'm having fun watching them eat seaweed salad and squid salad and eating sushi, and it was great. We get back to the office, and I asked them, I said, how many performing arts centers did we pass? And they start listing things. I said, how many museums did we pass? They start listing things. How many musical venues did we pass? They start listing things. I said, now, how often are those places open? Well, mostly daily, some just on the weekend, but relatively all the time. I said, now think about what y'all just said. All of the people that go to this, all on a regular basis, how many of those same people make a trip to the Austin Livestock Show and Rodeo once a year? Mm. And they all looked at me and they said, I don't know. And I said, see, where I'm going with this is we sometimes shake our fist at the world and we say, how come you don't understand this? How come you don't understand agriculture? How come you don't understand FFA? And I'm sitting here going, we have a responsibility of taking our message to them. And the reason that we wanted to forge this relationship with Foreman is because y'all came from a background that wasn't just agriculture. Mm-hmm. And we thought, who better to help us tell our story than somebody who can translate our story in a way that helps other people really get it.
Yeah.
So I just want to give that background so that people understand how this relationship started, why it started, and you can kind of see the paralleling core values that drive Steve and his team are the same values that drive myself and our team and Team Ag Ed toward a message so we can tell people about this incredible story of ag science and FFA. Steve, have y'all enjoyed getting to learn more about ag science and FFA through all this experience?
Oh, it's been amazing. I mean, ag science and FFA, it was really a light bulb moment early on in one of our first meetings. Like I mentioned earlier, I grew up in New Jersey, so South Jersey. So it is the Garden State. There is a lot of agriculture in New Jersey, but I wasn't exposed to it growing up. So learning the impact that an ag science education and all of the leadership development attributes of the FFA experience has on pointing young people in the trajectory of success and leadership was inspirational to me at the time. I had young kids and really saw the value in that. And so learning about the programs and all of the different kind of areas of focus that an ag science student can go into that will have not only are necessary for the future of American society, but will have a positive impact on the future of American society it's been really, really cool. And I talk about it all the time with people, when we're talking about the future and talking about concerns of food and environment and leadership and technology as it applies to all these things, the FFA and the preparation that you guys are doing for our future leaders is always a part of conversation if I'm involved, because it's just something that I've grown to love.
Thank you. And we appreciate that. And again, that's the reason why I like working together is you become a conduit. You become an ambassador for us to an audience that we might always know how to speak that language, but you can help us translate that. And by doing so, we kind of get outside of our own echo chamber, because in the world of FFA and ag science, we can talk LDEs and CDEs and SMEs, and we got so many acronyms. We all know what they are. The rest of the world's going, what in the world did they just say? And that's why we've got to have the right people that can help us translate that so that it can be assimilated by an audience that we might not have reached yet.
Yeah.
That's the value that your team's bringing to what we do.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is that what you guys do legitimately has an impact on everybody. And so it's easy for someone like me who focuses on communication, it's easy to translate that story in a way that's meaningful to people because they need food and, they need high quality employees,
Mm,
and they need, responsible citizens who understand how the world works. And so the need is there for if you want to call it the product that the FFA experience delivers, but it's really the people. But the need is there for the people and their output. And so it's really, really easy to speak to. It's easiest for us to do our job when in selling things. Because look, I mean, at the end of the day, our job at Foreman Furnace is to help our clients sell, whether it's an idea or a product or a service. And it's easiest to sell something when somebody feels the need. And part of our job for other clients is to get them to feel the need, right? Like manufacture a need or convince them that they have a need that maybe isn't front of mind. But the
mm.
needs that the FFA, that kids who come through the FFA program fill are felt by everybody. They're just front of mind for business owners and leaders in community and people, who are concerned with where food comes from.
Mm.
And so it's easy for us to tell your story because the need is there, and you guys do such a good job at scale of filling that need.
That's awesome. Thank you. You said something. I'm going to piggyback on what you just said.
Cool.
So, one of the things I like to ask the kids is I say, tell me about your business. And the kids will look at me and they say, well, I don't have a business. I said, yeah, you do. You're it. Uh, what time do you open? What kind of customer service do you deliver? Are you articulate? Can you sell me? And just, one of our great sponsors, Carlos Guerra, he always says, no show, no tell, no sell. And he's always talking about cattle. And if you can't show the cattle and you can't tell me about your cattle, you'll never sell your cattle.
Yeah.
Well, kids, they're our business. They're our future. You said it. I mean, they're our future. They also represent our brand. And one of the things that I think I've seen organizations take very lightly, is their brand. And they don't put enough time and effort into creating what their brand is. And I've been fortunate through my career to sit through several of those. I got to sit through the development of CEV Multimedia, and I got to watch CEV create its initial brand. I then watched that brand evolve into ICEV. I got to watch La Quinta go through their rebranding and of their Starburst, and I'll never forget getting to watch that. I got to watch Mahindra Tractors when they did some rebranding of their messaging, and but there's a lot that goes into brand. There's a lot that goes into an organization's brand. And what I wanted to ask you is how important, and this goes back to the individual. That's the reason why I'm bringing this up. It goes back to you're your own business. You're your brand. Everybody that knows me on social media knows I'm the live your brand guy. Live your brand. What you post, what you share, what you engage with, that's your brand. Steve, as a marketing professional, how important is a brand, and what thought process goes into creating the creative of a logo, of a brand? So how important is the brand, and how important is it to put that into an image like the Nike Swish or the Texas FFA Foundation? Give me an idea.
Yeah, I always say, kind of an analogy I use to disambiguate even what is a brand, because that word means
Mm,
different things to different people. And what I tell clients who come to us for branding is your marketing is like asking someone out on a date, and your brand is why they say yes.
mm,
So your brand,
mm,
essentially what your brand is, it's what your consumers believe about you. And you can leave that up to the market to decide, or you can be strategic about it and develop your brand to communicate to the market what you're about and communicate to the market what they should believe about you. I think so many companies leave it to the market to define what their brand is. They'll just create a great product, offer a great service, and kind of let the chips fall where they may when it comes to the brand, which could be great if you have a great product or a great service, and then you're defined by that. But it's hard to get people to trust handing their money over for what you offer without a brand, like I said, that your marketing is asking someone out for a date, and the brand is the reason they would say yes or say no. So the importance of a brand, I don't think can be overstated because it is the promise. It's how you communicate your unique value to the market. It's if it's done well, you can very quickly and succinctly educate your highest value customers about what you offer and why they should want it in 15 seconds.
Mm.
To me, a brand is more than a logo. A logo is just it's an important but small part of a branding project that we do. Your brand is understanding who your consumers are. It's understanding what their goals are as it pertains to your product offering or service offering. It's understanding the needs that they have, both kind of felt needs, their higher order needs that maybe they can't articulate as well. It's creating a messaging platform that includes the hierarchy of how you talk about what you do, includes the voice, the tone of voice or the copy style in which you communicate. And then it also includes your logo and color palette and fonts and other visual assets. I think what a lot of people think of when they think of a brand is the logo. And a lot of people go to the Apple logo or the Nike logo or some of these iconic logos that are so great because they're so simple and they're so easily recognizable. But one of the litmus tests I always give our designers when we're creating a piece for a client is if you cover up the logo, can you still tell that it's for that client? So you mentioned La Quinta. La Quinta was
Wow.
one of our clients for a long time. It's actually, I think, how we connected was La Quinta was a supporter of the Texas FFA, and we were doing work for La Quinta. And so that's how kind of we found ourselves in the same sphere of influence. And so when we were creating assets for La Quinta, we'd cover up the La Quinta logo. And can you still tell that that advertisement is for La Quinta if you cover up the logo? If not, then it's not a well-branded piece. Because the colors and the fonts and the photography and the tone, the headline, how it reads, the emotions that it's conveying, all are part of the brand.
Hmm.
And so branding is incredibly important. I mean, just get back to the simple question that you were asking. Branding is incredibly important because if you do it well and if you do it strategically, you're not leaving your brand up for the market to decide what it is.
That right there, Steve, what you just shared for a lot of our kids, right? For a lot of the young people that'll listen to this, for them, the most prominent place of their brand right now is on social media.
Yep.
And so what I tell them is that, consistency creates credibility. Mm-hmm. So first thing is, in my world, what I like to say is, make sure your profile picture is consistent. That way I know I'm talking to the right person. Because if it looks different, I'm always questioning, is this the same person? Or I'm not really sure. You're making me guess at stuff, and I don't want to guess. I want to know. And then secondly, what you like, share, comment on, all of the things that you engage with, that becomes part of your brand, like you said. So when I take your image away, I could see a comment and I could go, oh, I know that's Steve. It's talking about cars and really cool stuff. But I think you're onto something there. And I hope people heard that consistency creates credibility. And you want to create a brand that's known for its consistency. And that consistency is the tone. It's what we see. If I hear somebody giving me a speech about things that's inconsistent with what they're posting on social media, it's going to be harder for me to reconcile those two. So I think there's a lot of genius in what you just shared. And I hope people really take a moment and drill down and listen to that, because that was really good advice that you just shared.
Yeah. I think your audience too, they would, there are exercises you could go through to show how what you're saying, lack of consistency, or when a brand is applied consistently, you can spot inconsistencies. They stick out like a sore thumb. So if somebody were to see, a fake Nike ad that had the Nike logo on it, but very clearly had the wrong messaging, they even though it has the Nike logo on it, because that brand is so well
Mhm.
applied, they could spot a fake from a mile away,
Mm.
and they wouldn't trust it because they feel like that's not on brand. Somebody just slapped a Nike logo on a fake ad or whatever. So you're absolutely right. It's trusted brands that are consistently kind of stewarded through all of the communications in all of the different channels in which they appear.
That Zig Ziglar, I love Zig quotes. I'm a big
Yeah.
Zig fan, and Zig and Tom Ziglar have said that if they know you, they'll listen to you.
Mm.
But if they trust you, they'll do business with you.
Mm.
And I believe that you build that trust through consistency. I believe you build that trust through relationship. And I think that, like you said, we either take charge of our brand or we leave it up to somebody else to determine what our brand is. And we
That's
may
right.
not like how they interpret our brand.
Yep.
So,
Well, and how are they going to do it too? You have to think to yourself, they're going to do it by how you most consistently represent yourself. So you are branding, whether you're doing it on purpose or not. We're all in the business of creating a brand. And even if we're leaving it up to others to define or to articulate what the brand is, what they're going to do is look for, how do you consistently treat others? How do you consistently show up? How do you consistently dress? How do you consistently speak? And that's going to be what your brand is. So yeah, I mean, the idea of being consistent in the things that are important to your brand is really, really important for individuals as well as for corporations and companies.
absolutely. And that's kind of where this is why I wanted you on the show right here, because I mean, you're a professional in marketing, you're a professional in creative development, and you're helping us understand as individuals. It's like I tell the high school kids, if we could get to every eighth grader and tell every eighth grader, do me a favor, for the next 4 years, find something that you're passionate about and talk about those for three things for 4 years. Just talk about those things. Let that be your brand. And then when you get to college, I want you to do the same thing for the next 4 years. Find three things that you're really passionate, interested in. Talk about those. I guarantee you, when you get ready to graduate from college, you won't have to look for a job.
Yeah.
Because your brand will be so well known and so consistent that somebody will say, that's who I want working here, because that's how they're going to promote my brand. So that's why I say that consistency and understanding that is so important to both a person, an organization, or even our companies.
Yep.
And we work with some great brands, by the way. We work with some great brands, and we enjoy getting to work with them. I remember when we got the gift from Ford Motor Company to build our building in Austin, Texas. There was a book probably this thick just on the branding of the oval on the building of what we could and we couldn't do. So that's how serious brands are. That's how much those brands are worth. And to your point, Steve, what's more valuable than your own personal brand?
Yeah.
So these tools, these suggestions, these ideas that Steve and we're sharing through the show, those are those seeds that you can plant that will grow a strong brand. They'll grow a brand that can open a lot of doors of opportunity. Let's talk about leadership for a minute.
Sure.
Because you're a leader. I would say you've been around leaders. You've traveled the country. You've been exposed to a lot of different types of leaders. You've been in business meetings with leaders.
Yeah.
If in your experience you could condense some of that down and tell young people, here are 3 leadership tips, what would you tell them? What would be 3 tips on leadership you would share with FFA members?
The first tip would just be to listen. I think good leaders listen. And that's not to say that they let the voice of other people necessarily influence the decisions that they make, but they listen to, you mentioned it earlier, Aaron, mentors or your personal board of directors. They listen to their employees, people who have their finger on the pulse of the day to day, and they listen to the market. They understand what's going on in their industry, what the future may hold. staying relevant, whether it's through continuous learning opportunities or podcasts like this one, or other types of industry voices that they're paying attention to. So I think listening is the first thing that jumps to my mind, and partially because I've seen it modeled, and partially because a lot of the uh, less than stellar leaders that I've observed, one of the first things I've noticed is they don't listen. Nobody can say anything to them. They get defensive or they bristle when somebody says something they don't like. So they don't genuinely have an open mind or an open ear to differing opinions. So good leaders listen. I think also good leaders have a vision for the future. They see a direction and they're willing to take steps in that direction. I liken this to kind of something that I learned when we had our first child, was this idea of a flexible routine. And I think good leaders have a version of that flexible routine. So the flexible routine that we learned with children is like, there's a general model when you have a newborn infant. It's, sleep, play, eat, sleep, play, eat, and it kind of is on repeat for the first 9 months or so. But you need to be flexible with that, right? There's a pattern, but you can break the pattern a little bit and still be fine. And it's good because it keeps you sane. But it also keeps the child kind of in the zone of having their needs met in the way they need to be met. And so I think in business, it's very similar to have that flexible path forward, the vision for the future, that can be influenced by market dynamics. It can be influenced by technological innovations, but you've got a direction because you can articulate it to your team and they can rally around it, which builds the camaraderie and builds the environment in which people can succeed and know what's expected of them. And then the third part is probably accountability. I think being accountable to your mentors, being accountable to your own moral code, or promises that you've made or commitments that you've made, and being accountable to the team that you're leading, because at the end of the day, your job as a leader is to make your team successful. It's not their job to make you a success. It's your job to make them a success. And so, you need to be able to say, "Hey guys, I'm sorry, I messed up. I made the wrong call here," or "I know I said I was going to do this and I fell short, and that's on me because I either overpromised or I underdelivered." So I think accountability is also incredibly important for a leader. And there's probably more attributes of leadership that we can talk about, but those are the three that really come to mind right now.
Those are strong, by the way. And what's interesting is you bring guests on and you ask them that question and you start finding these common denominators.
Yeah.
And, one of the ones that you said is they say, listen, and they don't mean just with your ears, they mean with your eyes too. Pay attention, because you never know what trend you may spot ahead of somebody else.
Yep.
And like you said, vision. I tell people all the time, the one thing I've learned about leaders that I've worked with is they're visionaries. And if you can't communicate things where they can see themselves as the hero of the story, if you can't communicate things where they can see how they can be part of the solution or be part of a positive outcome, it's hard for them to unpack it and understand, why am I here? Why do you need me involved? But if you can show them that vision and help them understand it, they want to be part of it. And I believe it's biblical, by the way. As a matter of fact, in 1985, when I ran for state FFA president, I took the stage with the quote, "The Bible says, where there is no vision, the people will perish." I'm Aaron Alejandro with a vision for the Texas FFA, and that was in 1985. And here we are today, and we're still trying to create visions. We're still trying to find opportunities for the people that are going to follow in our footsteps. And then lastly, I love it, accountability. There's some people that, you got onto me. Well, I got onto you because I care about you.
Exactly.
I got onto you because I want you to have responsibility. And when I give you responsibility, I need you to know I need to hold you accountable for that, just like I hold myself accountable for that. So that's excellent, Steve. I wrote them down. Listen, vision, and accountability. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Well, listen, time flies when you're having fun. And here we are. We've just about wrapped up the time that we have set aside for another episode of Growing Our Future. We appreciate you taking time, Steve, to come by and share with us. But you don't get out of here without the fun question. And everybody
Okay.
on the podcast gets a fun question. So here's your fun question, Steve. Tell me, what is the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh gosh. Best concert I've ever been to. The most memorable concert, I think it was because I was younger and a little bit more impressionable early in college. I went and saw No Doubt
Oh,
at the Electric Factory in Philadelphia. I was living in Southern New Jersey at the time, so it was only a 40-minute drive. But this was before they were big. So this was a small venue, standing room only, and it was crazy. It was, I mean, like nothing I've ever been to before. It was insane. It was like a crazy party. That was the concert I've been to. It maybe not have been the best musically, but from just making memories, I went there with my cousin and some friends. It was a good time.
isn't that
Yeah.
great? I love it. I mean, let me
Yeah.
tell you, I love asking guests that question because when you look at the spectrum of guests, young, old, male, female, different backgrounds, different experiences, it's fun to hear what music we like, to
Yeah.
hear the experiences that we've had. And, I think sometimes we overcomplicate things. I tell people all the time, people don't change. They never have.
Mm.
You can read the Bible and you'll find pessimists and optimists. You'll find sinners and saints. And guess what? Fast forward to 2024, and guess what you find? Pessimists and optimists, sinners and saints. People don't change. I think individuals can change, but I don't think people change. And I think sometimes we look so hard for that silver bullet when really the same thing that motivates, inspires you is the same thing that motivates, inspires me.
Yep.
A good song, a good movie, good book, and family, friends, incentive.
Hmm.
And I find the same thing works with my kids.
Yep.
So I think a lot of times we get so caught up in looking for the magic bullet, but it's really not there. Sometimes it's in the simplest things. So
Yep.
let me tell you about the No Doubt concert I went to. So that's
I
that's
dated myself a little bit there, I think.
I know who No Doubt is. So
Okay, good.
anyway, Steve, thanks so much for coming by and sharing. Thanks so much for the work that you do. If y'all are not familiar with Four Man Furnace, I'm going to put the link in the comments, but if you want to see some of their work, go to the mytexasffa.org website. Go to mytexasffa.org, click on our stories, and watch 4 videos. These are award-winning videos. Go check these videos out. They were written, helped, directed by Steve, his team, and some other collaborators, but they are outstanding and they have an incredible evergreen shelf life to them because of the way that y'all designed them. So we appreciate that. And you'll
Yeah.
just see some of the incredible work. And then when you get to Four Man's website, you're going to see some of their incredible work, not just with the Texas FFA, but with other clients. Steve, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Aaron.
For everybody else, thank you for stopping by. Time is the only thing we get to spend. We can't save it. We just get to spend it. And guess what? You spend a little of your time with us, and we want you to know that we appreciate that. We appreciate, again, the platform where we get to share guests like Steve and their insights with all of the incredible audience that we have. And we appreciate you. Again, like we say in agriculture, if you want to know what the future is, grow it. That means you've got to plant seeds. You got to put them in place in your life. As Steve said, they're part of your brand. Make sure you're planting the good stuff so you can harvest the good stuff. And until our paths cross again, everybody go out and do something great for somebody. You'll feel good about it. And guess what? Along the way, you just might make our communities a better place to live, work, and raise our families. Till we meet again, everybody be safe.